Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NFL Trap Podcast, Week 4. I'm Curtis Williams, and I'm joined here with Greg
Hey guys.
and Chance.
Hey guys, how you going?
There we go, all good. So it seems like everyone's mic's working. It's been an interesting week of NFL. We came off both of the Australian sports two grand finals as well, and
Mhm.
I don't know if there was any. I don't think it was an upset. Would you say the West Coast
No, I
got
think
over
it
the
was one.
Pies
I think
and the Roosters got up?
AFL one was like an upset. The AFL, because I know Collingwood was favourites going to the game, but yeah,
Yeah, no.
Good game.
I mean, I don't think anyone expected the NRL Grand Final to turn out as it did, but I don't think it's a surprise
Yeah.
that the Roosters won.
I think if Cooper Cronk wasn't on the team, it'd be a totally different story.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. He played with a broken scapula, which is crazy. Like
Yeah.
to play, a contact sport, especially
Yeah.
rugby, with a broken shoulder.
Hmm.
And then the story came out today that Blake Ferguson also played the entire second half with a broken leg, which is just that's crazy toughness.
yeah, it's just
Hmm.
super crazy that.
Um, but that's enough of the Australian sports. Let's get into the NFL, and we started off the week on our Friday with the Rams and the Minnesota Vikings going head to head, and man, this was a fun game to watch.
Hmm.
I think Chance, you said you were able to catch it live. Did you watch any of it, Greg? Or were you at work? Eh?
Yeah, I was at work. Yeah, but I did manage to keep an ear in the action, and I remember last week I said it was the game that could that obviously the Rams had the edge, but it could turn out to be like a close battle, and that's what it turned out to be. So hence why it was such an exciting game.
Yeah, it was definitely exciting. I mean, it was an absolute shootout. Both quarterbacks threw for over 400 yards.
Yeah.
Over what was it? Both teams scored 30 points, so that's a crazy stat in itself.
Hmm.
You don't see that. I definitely didn't expect it out of both of these teams. I thought their defenses were going to be a lot better than they were.
Hmm.
That's a takeaway I can take from this game is the Rams secondary didn't look as dangerous as I thought it was going to be.
Well, they're missing Talib, aren't they?
Was it Talib or Peters that didn't play this week?
I think it was Talib.
But yeah, so that secondary looks like it can get exposed by a really good team. Like Minnesota
Hmm.
has really good wideouts, and they looked exposed.
Yeah.
Diggs had some stupid amount of yards. What was it? Diggs went for 123 yards. Thielen went for 135. Like you just can't allow those kind of yardages
Hmm.
with a secondary that's that good.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, I think this game was absolutely entertaining. And man, can anyone stop the Rams this year?
Find out.
No, they were. I think I spoke to you on Saturday night. I said this Rams team could possibly go 16-0. Like
Yeah, I don't think
not
you're wrong there.
as hard as like we thought it would be at the start of the season, and like offense led by Goff and Gurley. They're just dangerous, and then Donald leading the pack on the defensive end. They're a very, very, very scary team.
No doubt.
Yeah,
No
absolutely.
doubt. But
It's
I think the one team that can really give them a run for their money in actually making an upset is the Eagles.
well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting because the Eagles went down to Tennessee. We'll get to that game in a second, but yeah, I mean, I think that the Rams look really strong. I don't really see an issue in their game plan as long as Gurley can stay healthy. That running game is going to be ridiculous, and he's one of their best receivers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their red zone plays are so good, and I hate to admit it, Chance, but you were right. Jared Goff is an absolute stud. Like you watch the throws that he made on that night, and those aren't just whatever throws. You can't put Blake Bortles or like a Tyrod Taylor in that situation and have them play the same way. Like he made some absolute stud throws.
Hmm.
He's a gun. And just to think, 2 seasons ago, people were saying he was a bust.
Yeah, and I mean that's because he was thrown into a system that didn't fit him halfway through a season as a rookie. You know, like this is a team that's been built to succeed. I think this is a Super Bowl or bust year. Like it has to be with the way that they've built it. They have 1 year contracts with like Sue and stuff. But I
Oh yeah,
mean,
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
do you guys see like realistically what team beats them and how do they beat them? Because their lines are both great. Their
Oh,
receivers are amazing
NFC or both
in
conferences.
both conferences. Like I think the best team that has a chance is Pat Mahomes if they just get into an absolute shootout. But even
Oh,
then, the
just a
Rams defense
blowout.
is good
Yeah.
enough to stop that.
Yeah, I agree. I think again, like I think the Eagles are probably the best chance out of the NFC. To come out of that and really give them a push. Like this game here was really just a testing to see where the Vikings were at with the Rams, because we all thought that Vikings would be playing it out, and they just looked, even though like they threw for a lot of points, I just think that the Rams are just so strong, and I just think it's sort of like how the Eagles started last season.
Yep.
So I seriously think that it's going to be one of those years where another NFC team will probably take out the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the NFC's absolutely stacked. Like, we haven't even gotten into like how crazy the South is with Tampa now dropping 2 games, so they're back to 2-2.
They're back to 2-2. Yeah.
So like that division's blown wide open. The North, I mean, Chicago looks really good as well, so they could give the Vikings even a run for their money. Especially with Green Bay. Like Green Bay just absolutely stomped the Bills. We'll get to that game later. I think you've got that one covered, right, Chance?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I mean that was not
Yeah.
a game. But
No, it wasn't.
yeah, I think that the Rams are going to be really strong this year, and 16-0 is a very real possibility. But yeah, so we talked about the Philadelphia Eagles being a chance to maybe upset them. They went down to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Kind of a bad game. The Eagles sort of let them back into this one with some bad defense, but they got some really, really unlucky calls here. Like, I know that I'm an Eagles fanboy, and this is going to sound super biased, but they got some really unlucky calls.
Okay.
There was a lot of blocking calls with like blocks in the back that just weren't picked up and they weren't flagged. And I mean, you can't blame the refs for that. Like, that's just something that's going to happen in the game. But as the Philadelphia Eagles, they shouldn't have ever let the Titans come back from where they were. Like, the Eagles were up 17-10 after the third, and then they just give up. They just give up points, and they give up a 90-yard drive in overtime to end the game.
Oh wow.
And there were 3 separate instances they were on a 4th down, and they couldn't get the stop. Like, there's no one you can blame in that situation but yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
And especially when one of those plays that you gave up was a 3-and-22 or 3rd-and-22, and all of a sudden you put them back in the game. Like, if you stop them there, they have to punt because you can't kick. I think they were back on their 40 or something, so you're not going to even attempt a 70-yard chip shot or a 70-yard kick. So you're going to punt. All of a sudden, you get the ball back. You go down the field. You put another field goal down. All of a sudden, the game's over. Like,
Yeah. Well, do you think the Eagles can bounce back from that? Because they're 2-2 now, right?
yeah, they're 2-2. I mean, like, from here on out, the next 4 weeks are really difficult. Like, they've got a very tough run. I think they have next week. I'll just double check who they're playing next week.
They got. Ooh.
Who have they got next week? Yeah, they host Minnesota, then they get the Panthers, then I think they play the Giants and Dallas. I think the next 4 weeks are not like cruisy for them at all. So they really wanted to come out of these first 4 weeks 3-1, 4-0.
At best, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's not pretty, but it's not like we're not putting up like everything is done. The sky is falling. Alshon's back. He looked amazing. Wentz is starting to look like himself. There was a couple of bad times. Yeah, there was a couple of bad times where he just like let pressure get to him and he couldn't do anything to stop it. But yeah, no, he's playing pretty well. Marcus Mariota had an absolute stellar game. Like he only threw for 350 yards, and I'm saying only because we just talked about the absolute shootout that happened in LA. But I mean, yeah, Mariota actually did things with his feet, which you haven't seen in all of last year. I think even back to 2016 is the last time you really saw Mariota use his legs to get out of the pocket and start moving the chains. But yeah, he looked really good. The Titans are 3-1, so they're really poised to just snatch that division because the Jags have a pretty tough schedule. Houston looks terrible, and the Colts, man, just oof.
The Colts.
Yeah, they're the Colts. Like, they had a game today where they should have, yesterday where they should have won, like by a country mile, because Houston couldn't get anything going offensively, and yet, they shoot themselves in the foot. They have a strip sack on their 2-yard line. They let Andrew Luck get pressured, and he drops the ball for a touchdown recovery in their own end zone. Like, you just can't do that stuff. But yeah, I guess that wraps up the Houston game as well, because that was really it. I mean, Watson looked better. He still doesn't look great. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know if it's they didn't lose their offensive coordinator, did they, in Houston?
No, no, I don't
So
think so.
I don't know what the difference is because he looks like a completely different player. He looks absolutely shook. It's like he doesn't know what to do, when to pass, when to run.
Well, he's
Um,
just come out of an ACL injury, so maybe you could be a bit hesitant on that.
yeah, you'd understand that,
Because, like, you know,
but like he's coming off an injury that he had before Carson, and Carson looks amazing. Like, and this was a kid that looked ready to play last year.
mm,
Um, I guess while we're on the Colts game, let's put a massive shout out to Adam Vinatieri for breaking the all-time field goals made record. Um, so huge shout out to him. I think everyone can say that he has crushed multiple dreams of many a spectator
Mm.
in Super Bowls with his field goals. And it's great to see a guy like that, have his place in the history books.
Mm.
I think that's really all I've got to do to wrap up those three games. So what did we have next? Is it the Seattle game or?
Well, we can talk about the Bucks game where they got rolled by the Bears. Jameis Winston, first game for the season. Made 16 completions, 145 yards, made a touchdown, had two picks at the same time. They decided to bring in Fitzpatrick. I don't think that was a smart move because he only made 9 completions, 126 yards, and a pick. You could tell, you could definitely tell Chicago's defense is definitely, something, especially for the team itself. I think it's a major force that really carries them because their main target, Bucks' main target, Deshaun Jackson, was only held to 5 receptions for 112 yards, but didn't.
but that's still a lot. You know, 5 assists,
Yeah.
100 twice. Lot.
Yeah, but at the same time, he didn't put any points on the board.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
On the flip side, Mitch Trubisky had the game of his life: 19 completions, 354 yards for 6 touchdowns. His favorite target was.
He equaled the record for in Bears history, I think, for touchdowns in a single game.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised with that.
Sure,
with
Or he equaled it or
Yeah.
something today. Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised at all. That's some stellar results right there, especially for a second-year QB like him. And his favorite target was Tariq Cohen, who led the team in rushing and receiving. So he had 13 carries and 7 receptions, combined 174 yards and a touchdown.
That's my boy on the fantasy. He got me over the line. I mean, I was always going to win our fantasy week since you picked up Tannehill and he scored 18 points. But yeah.
Greg also had a guy who gave him point two.
Yeah, was it Ted Ginn Jr. scored you .01 points?
Something like that. Something like that. Just one of those weeks. Bounce back next week. Maybe the week after that. Just 1 week.
But yeah, it looks like the Monsters of the Midway are back. Was it more of an? I didn't get to see this game. Was it more of an offensive game, or was it just the Bears' defense just really chokehold those Buccaneers?
I think if you have to wrap this game up in a nutshell, it's so clear that the Bucks can only really play one side of the ball, and to see it and again, as I said earlier, the Bears' defense is really what's anchoring or what's really giving momentum for the team. But it just really shows that they're definitely the better all-rounder team, and the result speaks for itself.
For sure.
Yeah. So then we'll move on to this game, which I thought would be a lot better than it was. It was New York taking on the Giants taking on the Saints. Where it showcased two Hall of Famers. We already know they could both be in the Hall of Fame, Eli Manning and Drew Brees. Really, really tight contested game in the first half. I think it was 12 at the half. The Giants defense in the red zone was just amazing. They forced New Orleans to kick 4 field goals in the first half, and for a team like that, I think it says a lot about the defense. Then you had Kamara. He had 19 carries for 134 yards, just coming off the back. He won the Offensive Rookie of the Year, right, last year?
Yep.
He's just back on form again. What I really want to stress is throughout the whole game, we have OBJ wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's going to express himself, and he just looked mad the whole game. I don't know if you two watched the game, but he was mad, and I think it's a sign that something's wrong in New York. Really, really bad. Greg would know more about that, being a fan, but I reckon prove because they're 1-3 now. Like he could just sit out and say, "I'm not playing."
He did just sign that massive
Yeah.
contract though, didn't
He
he?
did, but yeah, he did. But like, you think we all thought that New York weren't going to be impressive, but we all thought they were going to be better than this.
Uh,
They have a decent offense.
yeah, I do remember sitting down with Greg though, and we went through the schedule, and we went, nope, 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 nope. Okay, they could win that one. Nope, nope, nope. And we came out with what, like 4-12? We said.
Well, they're 1-3 now, so
Yeah, so like
Uh,
I would not be surprised to see this team go 4-12. Like that's what we said at the start of the season. Um, but yeah, I mean like they should be better than this.
for sure. And I think that's leads to my next point. Like, I think New York were really foolish on on relying on Eli still, because he's well, like from what I saw today, he's well and truly on the decline. He's been like that for like since probably halfway through last year.
Yep.
Remember speaking to you, I thought we both thought they were going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, I think we.
Yeah, we all agreed that we thought that they were going to draft a quarterback. Not saying that Saquon was a bad pick. Just really shows how much they rely on Eli, and I don't think that was the right decision. And they only have themselves to blame. That's why they're 1-3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg, do you have anything to jump in there with
I think Chance pretty much said everything.
as the
that
big
I
blue
wanted to
fan?
He pretty much spoke. He pretty much said it pretty much perfectly in a nutshell.
Yeah.
There's
Well, I
nothing-
guess we can move on then straight to the Cleveland Oakland game. And
Oh, get weak.
this was an instant classic. An absolute shootout. I didn't expect the game to go the way it did. But man, was this just an absolute blast to watch. You had Carr just absolutely ripping it. 434 yards, 4 TDs, 2 interceptions. Not exactly the perfect game, but man, he was absolutely just like gunning these down the field. You could really see that the addition of Jordy Nelson has helped their passing game.
Yeah.
And the biggest difference for the Raiders from their last 3 games to this game was the fact that they were able to get to the quarterback, which this reinforces a point that I don't know if I said on the podcast last week, but I've said to you guys multiple times. I don't like Cleveland's O-line. And it's the reason that I suggested that they sit Baker as long as possible, because you don't want to put the kid in a position where he's going to get swamped and take 4 sacks a game,
Pretty much.
you know?
Well, yeah. Well, I think Cleveland really shot themselves in the foot here. They were up, and I think they let the Raiders back in it because I think there was a Baker threw an intercept.
Yep.
And I think they had a fumble. I think the Raiders had a fumble recovery on, I think it was 9 or 15-yard line, and they scored from that.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah, Baker threw 2 interceptions in this game. One of them resulted in a touchdown on the next drive for the Raiders.
Yeah.
If there's one amazing thing to take out of this for Browns fans, it's their run game is amazing. Nick Chubb is going to be a gun.
Well, Hyde's is good as well.
And Hyde's that veteran that you're going to put in there. You can give him 20, 30 carries a game, and he's going to get you production. But Nick Chubb went for 3 carries for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, this kid
Is he
can
also the
run.
returner?
No, he's
Is
not
he
even their
returning?
returner.
Oh,
This was
he
just him
also
out of the
returning.
backfield just making plays. Like, he was absolutely amazing to watch, and he was just breaking tackles left and right. That running game, if you get them behind a proper O-line, like if you put both of these rushes in Dallas, behind a healthy Dallas line, or in Philly, these guys would be all-pro Hall of Fame talent.
That's
like,
saying a lot.
Yeah,
That is.
that's what I'm saying. Like, these guys are going to be good. Nick Chubb is going to be good for a lot of years if he can stay healthy. So, like, if
Well,
you're
that's
the
biggest
Browns,
question here, yeah.
yeah, if you're the Browns, you're thinking, okay, how can we either buy O-line talent or how can we draft it? Because that's what they need. Like, their receivers are great. There's no doubt about it. Like, Landry is an absolute, like, gun Pro Bowler. And then Callaway, their rookie, is really good. Tight end David Njoku is an absolutely reliable veteran pair of hands.
Yeah.
So, like, the Browns should have won this game, except for the fact that the Raiders finally had pressure on the QB. Like, people are memeing
Yeah.
the fact that John Gruden kept saying it's hard to find a good pass rush after you trade Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
But it's true, like they weren't able to get any pressure on the last 3 games. But this time they got to the quarterback, they put Baker under pressure, and he did what rookies do: and you throw in interceptions, you throw some picks. Um,
Yeah.
Carl looked great though. He got the ball out to Cooper and Bryant and Nelson, and he spread the ball out, and he made that Browns defense really have to think. They ran a
Yeah.
lot of good looks. They ran a lot of slants and a lot of double moves and rubs to try and get some of those guys open. It was
Yeah.
good to see Martavis Bryant come back and look as good as he did. Where he only got 3 receptions, but that went for 51 yards. So
Yeah.
that's like really good production. Amari Cooper is still his primary receiver, and he looked really great at 8 receptions for 128 yards, but and went for a TD. But I don't know. I don't know why Oakland won this game. Like they didn't do anything to me that stands out to say, oh yeah, we were the better team on the day, because they didn't look it for 3 quarters.
Yeah. Oh no, they didn't. No, no. It was a good game to watch, but I think, as I said before, it was really the Browns' game to lose, and they lost it.
Yep.
I think when you're in a position, when you're up, I think they're up by 2 touchdowns, like that, and you have no real pressure coming off the ball. I think it's a game that you need to win.
Yep.
And I think we were all walking in thinking, it's going to be a blowout by the Browns. No one really expected much from Oakland. But I think what it also is, that Oakland crowd is, I think they love the Raiders. And I think that's really got them. I think that fired them up, because in that second half, third and fourth quarter, they really, really put the pressure on Baker, and their secondary unit was running real smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been it there. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so then we'll move on to the Cardinals game, which was they played the Seahawks, and this was a game that the Cards should have won. They were up 10-7 at the half. They looked good. Started Rosen over Bradford, which I thought was a decision they should have made in week 1. He looks good all accounts. Just I think he's knowing the Cards. You're going to try and give the ball to Johnson as much as possible, because he's a star running back, but he hasn't had no form. I think the last 4 weeks, we can all agree, he's not found his form yet.
Yeah, well, I think David Johnson.
Average running back. So
David Johnson was rated super high on running backs. I think people had him like going in the first round and like the first 5 or 6 picks in most fantasy leagues.
well, I picked him second.
Yeah, like I think overall in like every fantasy league over the entire Yahoo site, he went like top 5.
Oh yeah, and today he had 71 yards and 22 carries.
Yeah, so obviously he's not living up to the expectations. Like he did have the entire year off last year due to injury, but I mean, yeah, he is meant to be your marquee player.
Yeah. So I think the standout today was Mike Davis for the Seahawks. The running back, 101 yards and 21 carries for 2 touchdowns. He did replace Chris Carson because of injury. He looked really cool. He looked really good, fluid. But it's not much to say because it is the Cards defense. So, to myself, are they the new Cleveland Browns? And I think they are. Looking ahead at their schedule, it doesn't get a lot easier for them. Possibly go 0-16, but I was nice and I said probably 2-14 at best.
So what's
I
an
don't know if you
NFC?
guys agree. Yeah, I think they are. I think they're terrible. Like if I've seen all their games, or the highlights at least, and they just don't look good. Even they were up at halftime, they were playing all right, and I thought, okay, maybe they will win, but they only managed to score. They were held scoreless in the third quarter, and then I think they had a late touchdown in the fourth. And I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I don't think they're that good, and I think they will be the worst team in the conference.
Yeah, I agree they're not good, but I think it's still too early to tell if they're going to be Western Conference.
Okay, let's say I think they're gonna be the worst in the division.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
They're gonna be bad in the division. But the biggest talking point out of this was Earl Thomas. After getting carted off with I think it was an ankle injury, he did flip off the Seattle bench. And I want to ask you guys: do you agree or disagree with his actions?
I think personally, from a personal point of view, I disagree with his actions. but at the same time, I can see why he's
Well, yeah, because he wanted to re-sign with the Seahawks, and they held him out for a long time, and I think he just
yeah
grew frustrated, and I think this was the boiling point.
yeah
I completely agree with what he did. I
yeah
think the right move, why not show? He's showed his frustrations the whole year already in the first 4 weeks,
yeah
and I think although it's not right, I agree with what he did. I think it's just
yeah
a point where he's just like a statement he's trying to make, like saying, I'm gone. Basically, I think this is what it is. I think he's gone.
yeah
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there. I think this was the wrong move for him as a player.
yeah
I don't disagree with him, saying to the Seahawks, "Look, I've had enough. Just trade me already." But you don't go out on the field. You don't flip off your teammates because that doesn't say
exactly
anything good about you. It doesn't say anything good about your locker room. It doesn't say anything good about your coaches or like anything about that organization.
Carroll and the coaching staff more than it was towards the players.
Yeah, but like it doesn't matter. Like you shouldn't be flipping off your own team no matter who they are or what they've done.
exactly
Like
That's right.
you're a professional at the end of the day, and he is on a free agency year. Like the last thing you want to be doing is putting your image out there as I'm a guy that quits on my team when we're down, and if you're going to just screw me around at all, I'm done. Like you can't do that as a professional.
Put it this way. Put it this way. If he was to become a free agent and you see him make actions like that, would you want him on your team?
No, no, like he's a great player, but
Well,
you wouldn't want to deal with that.
you can see the he makes though, because he was quite open about saying, I want to return to Seattle. The fact that they held out on him for so long, you can see where his frustrations are, and you can kind of understand his point.
Yeah, I can
No
understand
doubt.
it, but at the end of the day, he's a
I,
pro. He's an adult man. He needs to be taking responsibility for his actions. Like you can understand, like he's injured in that stage. He's vulnerable, and he's frustrated. But at the end of the day, like it's your responsibility to hold your personal brand to a standard that you have set over the years. And everyone knows that Earl Thomas is a great player. There's no reason for him to go and flip off his teammates or his bench in any way. It doesn't do anything positive for him. Like, there's nothing to be gained by doing that.
Yeah, well then that's a great question. We'll raise the point to you guys, our viewers. What do you think? Leave a comment or go to our Facebook page. What you think?
Yeah, let us know and we'll address any comments we see next week.
Yeah, so we'll move on. Kurt.
Yep. So we covered the Texas game. Just while I see it being brought back up, Andrew Luck looks good. Like the rest of the Colts look pretty average, but Andrew Luck looks pretty good. Do you guys reckon he's going to be comeback player of the year? Because in his competition is, you know, he's got it. He's got the Watsons. He's got the J.J. Watts, the Carson Wentz, some pretty big names.
Yeah, I think he's a lock for comeback player of the year, just because of the fact that he was gone for so long.
Mm.
Because he was gone for so long, and the fact that he's throwing 300, 400 yards every game and looking good, he's looking healthy for once. I think why not? I think, if he can help the Colts, 500 team, so maybe I don't know, 6-10, 7-9. I don't see why not that he could be comeback player of the year.
Mhm.
Yeah, his real competition would probably be Carson Wentz. But,
I think the biggest competition is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers as well. A-Rod is pretty much single-handedly carrying that Green Bay team.
I think he's
I forgot
contender.
yeah, I forgot he was injured last year.
Yeah, there's a pretty big like class of returning players from injury. Andrew Luck is looking really good. I mean, he was nearly out of the game as long as Cleveland hadn't won a game for. Just to put that into perspective for like our viewers. And he's come back and he looks good. Like he's easily starter material. Unfortunately, he's on a bad team, but yeah, I think he looks good. I don't think he's a lock for it. I think it's just such a huge class of like such talented people coming back. But at the moment, I'd say he's a front runner for that for sure.
Yeah.
And then we'll move into our next game, which is Baltimore at the Steelers at Baltimore. And the Ravens were able to pinch this win, 26-14. Do we think Baltimore can make it back to the postseason? Because so far they're 3-1. They're the top of their division. They look pretty dominant in the games that they've played. What do you guys reckon?
I don't see why not. I like that Baltimore team. I think Flacco has found some form,
Mhm.
a long awaited form. I think they got a good O line, decent receiving core, uh, a decent secondary unit
Mhm.
built for the postseason. I don't know if they'll make a great run. Maybe I don't know. Maybe oh, they'll make a great run, but I still think they will make the postseason,
Mhm.
and that's saying a lot.
What about you,
Last year.
Greg? Do you reckon? Because they only missed out on it by one game last year.
I'll say
When
so.
Cincinnati beat them in Week 17.
I'll say so. For more or less the same reasons as Chance just discussed and you pointed out as well, Kurt. I would say yeah, same reason, making the postseason purely as division winners of the North.
Yeah, I think they should win this one pretty comfortably. I guess my biggest takeaway from this game is the Pittsburgh defense. You can really tell that they're missing Shazier in that middle third of the field. They just look lost. I know that they drafted Edmonds, that safety, and he's an absolute freak talent.
Mm.
Um, but it looks like, and they got TJ Watt, who's an absolute gun, and he's playing really well out of that linebacker position. But they just look like they're missing some cohesion there. Like I don't know if it's a scheme thing, but they're getting beat on a lot of plays that shouldn't be open. Um,
Mm.
they're not playing a lot of man, which either says that they're not confident in their DBs or they don't trust their line to hold off on a rush, and they're not blitzing enough. Flacco had a lot of time to pass in this game.
Mm.
Um, I I just don't know what Pittsburgh has done wrong to go from we're going to win the Super Bowl and being preseason favorites to win the Super Bowl to now being 1-2-1 and looking like they genuinely might be a middle of the pack to, you know, 20 plus team. Like
Mm.
Yeah.
this could be a sub 500 team this year. I don't think they will
Wow.
be. I think that they're going to go at worst like, you know, 7-8-1. Like that's going to be the worst that their record could be.
Hmm.
Mm.
But I mean, Big Ben looks old. He's not making those throws that he used to make with amazing receiver talent in Juju and Antonio Brown. You know, like it's
Yeah.
not like he looks great. So
I think a locker room thing as well. I think just within the locker room, the Le'Veon Bell thing. There's also talk about trading Antonio Brown. So I don't. It's not helpful for the morale
mhm,
in the team when it's a lot of talk. So that could contribute to it. Because I don't think when you have turmoil within the team or with management, you're not going to be great.
yeah,
Affect the way you play football.
for sure.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't have much else to say about this game. It was pretty average. Like nothing stood out. Flacco had another good game, which is like we're starting to see postseason Flacco in regular season, which I don't know if this is just that they lit the fire under his ass by drafting Lamar, but he looks good. It's a really good sign for Ravens fans.
Yeah.
So we'll just move on.
Yeah, we'll go on to the next game. Miami getting uh, destroyed by the Pats. I think Pats are picking up momentum. We saw with Brady making 23 completions, almost 300 yards, three touchdowns, but surprisingly two picks. Seems to be his favorite target that day or today was James White, 8 receptions, almost 70 yards and a touchdown. Tannehill, oh my gosh, he like there's in a nutshell, he had a bad day. You know,
It
11
was bad.
completions. Yeah, 11 completions, 100 yards and a pick. Not a good day for him at all. Interesting point with Gronk as well, sustaining an ankle injury. But I don't honestly, knowing the Pats, I don't think they'll slow him down. I
Well,
mean, you've got Edelman coming back next week. James White had a pretty good game today, and as long as Brady's there, they always have a chance, and they're really looking to pick up momentum from here.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember which one of you said it, but you were like, are the Pats in trouble? I don't think they are. I think, everyone every year we get to about, week 3, week 4, and we're like, ooh, the Pats are like losing a couple of games. Are they gonna, no, they're fine. Um,
Yeah,
Gronk
they'll figure it out.
Gronk is always injured every year. He never has played a 16 game season. I don't think ever in
Yeah,
his career.
they won the Super Bowl without him.
Yeah, and you got, like you said, you got Edelman coming back. They've got Gordon coming into the squad, which is something that we can't underwrite. Like that's an important pickup. That's another weapon for Brady. And in that locker room with those receivers, that's going to be a big weapon. You know, a big 6'2", 6'3" guy who's like 230 pounds. He's going to be able to, you know, rough it up with even the best of them. Like Jalen Ramsey's going to be a tough matchup. Once they get Gronk back into that squad, those two guys are going to be an absolute like nightmare for any secondary they come up against.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just quickly move on to the next game, which was, I'll run through these two games pretty quickly because there's not much to say.
Fair
You know,
enough.
the Packers dominated over the Bills. That just looked completely lifeless. Didn't want to be there. Played pretty bad. The D line was really bad from the Bills. They allowed 141 yards compared to the Packers, who only allowed 58 total yards rushing. Like they were all rush yards, so that's a massive difference. Looking at it, it's clearly evident that the Bills want to be a team that like to throw the ball, you know, like to run a lot of Z routes and so forth. However, you know, they're putting so much pressure on such a young quarterback, and like in Allen, and I think it's another week where he threw under 50% for completions.
Yeah.
Touchdowns. He threw two picks. 48%, 16 from 33 for 151 yards.
So he only had 10 more yards throwing than Green Bay had rushing.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad.
No, so it was pretty bad. Don't know why they're trying to put so much pressure on him. It's not right. I think it's going to be the point where people are going to start thinking that he's going to be a bad quarterback, which he isn't. He's a quite a good quarterback. And then, you know, about Green Bay, there's nothing really much we can say except that it's Aaron Rodgers is holding their heads above water. I think, you know, without Aaron Rodgers, they drown. They're not a very great team. I had a discussion with somebody the other day that if you take Rodgers out of that team, are they a 500 team? And so again, you know, Aaron Rodgers, yeah. And then the next game was probably game of the week. It was the Lions taking on the Cowboys, which I didn't really expect to be a very good game. You know, let's be honest. But once again, tried to bring his team over the line. Just fell a bit short. 307 yards, 2 touchdowns at 60% completion. You know, and you know when you have a receiver in Golden Tate, you know, 2 touchdowns, 132 yards on only 8 receptions. I think that about the Lions as one in the preseason as one of the teams that could be contending for a spot in the postseason as a wild card, you know, but they now slumped to 1-3. So I think it's time in Detroit where they start thinking about rebuilding. I don't know about you guys. I thought it was a weird game. You know, Zeke just dominated. Couldn't really stop him from running the ball. So yeah, that's all I have to say about those 2 games.
Yeah. Your audio sounds a little bit weird. Is your mic like moving closer and further away?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's happening. Your mic sounds like really crystal clear, and then it's like you're underwater the next minute. So
Righto.
that's something we'll just have to address for next week. But yeah. Zeke's just gonna have games like this where he just wins the game for the Cowboys. It's who he is. It's the
Well, he
reason
had
why.
150 carries.
Yeah, like that's a winning.
But no touchdowns.
It doesn't matter. Like if you get 152 yards on 25 carries, you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
Just the amount of clock that eats up, the amount of yards that you're not making Dak throw for. And that's what Dallas has always been good at. Like that was their bread and butter when they went 13-3. Was just feed Zeke, feed Zeke, and feed Zeke. As far as the Lions, I think a rebuild might be necessary, but the only issue
Do you
is
get rid of Tate
Yeah.
and Stafford to start this rebuild?
that's what I'm saying. Is where do you start? Like, Stafford isn't a young quarterback anymore. Like he's gonna be approaching like the end of his career. Like he's probably got about 10 years left in the league. But still, you don't want to rebuild a team with a quarterback that has 10 years left because you're paying him a ridiculous amount of money.
He's franchise tagged, isn't he?
I think he's franchise tagged. So you're paying him so
Yeah.
much of the cap, and then you've got experienced receivers. It's just like they have no O-line. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
They have no O-line, and their defensive line is mediocre at best.
Well, yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I think, you know, they're 1-3. Their run isn't going to get any easier. I think it's a rebuild, but again, as you said, I just don't know where to start. Do you build around Tate? Do you build around Stafford, or do you just completely, you draft a new kid, hope you tank, get a decent draft pick, and just build around your draft?
Yep, for sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so we can move on.
I think the next game is the Chargers and 49ers.
Yeah. Chargers move up to 2-2 after a really close game. Again, I only managed to watch the highlights, but I think from an offensive point of view, it was a pretty good game to watch. Philip Rivers making 25 completions, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Melvin Gordon had quite a game as well. He led the team in rushing and receiving. So 15 carries, 7 receptions, combined 169 yards and a touchdown. CJ Beathard, unfortunately for the Niners, couldn't carry it all the way, but he didn't do too bad either. But then again, I think Niners, losing Jimmy G is a big hit for them.
Yeah, so
Like,
Which is, Chance, remember how I said earlier that it's still an early call saying that the Cards are going to be worst team in the NFC? I think a big factor that'll come into play with this is Niners losing Jimmy G and where they'll go from there.
well, aren't they 1-3?
yes.
Yeah.
The Cards are 0-4.
They could pull off a win against the Niners, seeing as they're struggling.
Yeah, I don't see a positive outcome for San Francisco now that Jimmy G's out.
Yeah.
But in saying that, this is more worrying for the Chargers than anything else. Like, this is a game the Chargers should have put away in the bag, but they couldn't get it done. Like, 29-27 is a win, but against a team that has lost their starting quarterback, where you're going in full strength, like, this is a team that is the dark horse to win the Super Bowl this year.
Well, we had them winning the division, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Until they
Pat
play.
Mahomes went absolutely crazy and is like, he's Superman. Pat
Yeah.
Mahomes is Superman.
That's
Um,
right.
But like, yeah, like this is really worrying for the Chargers. Like, this is a team that we're now talking about maybe being the worst in their division with the like winless Cardinals, the last team in like the NFL that is winless.
Mm.
I don't think they're as bad as the Cardinals because I think the Cards have some like glaring weaknesses that cannot be fixed in the season, whereas the Niners were a contending team with Jimmy G. Now they're going to be probably a just under 500 team.
Yeah.
Like maybe, what do you reckon, like 6-10?
I'm gonna say 6
Yeah.
and 10, 5 and 11.
Yeah, something around there. Like,
around there. Yeah.
but yeah,
I
it's
really think, yeah. But when the Cards face up against them, I think they can really give them a run for their money.
but yeah, I think this is more worrying for Chargers fans than anything else.
Yeah.
So then we'll move on to that last game of the day that was played. Or
Yep.
not last game, but last game we'll talk about.
Yeah. So Falcons fell short of the Bengals. I don't think any of us saw that coming.
No, none of us picked this game, but
No.
I thought I tipped them. I thought I picked Cincinnati.
Wow. Hats off to you, Chance. Anyway, Matty Ryan going 29 completions, 419 yards and 3 touchdowns. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough to carry them all away because Andy Dalton had quite a bit of a game as well. 29 completions, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Very offensive oriented game.
It was.
Very offensive oriented, yeah.
which is always going to happen with the Falcons. Like, they should be in a shootout every week because their defense
Yeah.
is fine, but their offense should be a top 5 offense in the league.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's kind of worrying that the Falcons have gone to 1-3, with pretty much a healthy lineup.
Mhm.
I think it's just that they still can't get Julio in the game. Like, does Julio have a touchdown yet this season?
Yeah, he had
Didn't
one.
say.
He has one. So Julio has 1 touchdown in 4 weeks. That's not good enough.
No.
Or maybe not, because it was between him and Odell to see which one will get one first. And I know Odell didn't get one today.
Julio
So
hasn't.
maybe he didn't get.
Julio didn't get a touchdown
Maybe he
today.
didn't get one.
No.
There's none then.
So yeah, I don't think Julio scored a TD. Calvin Ridley got 2, and you guys know that I absolutely love Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what's wrong with this team. Like, you have the best receiving core in the National Football League, and yet you can't convert points to beat the Bengals.
Well, I don't know if the best. I don't know if they have the best receiving core. I mean, you got the Rams and Vikings.
No, they have the best receiving core in the game.
Be cool.
I don't think so.
Oh no, I agree with Kurt there.
Like you're
I think-
comparing Brandon Cooks and what Cooper
Diggs
Cup.
is a good player though.
Yeah, but like you're comparing Brandon Cooks and Cooper Cup to Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Calvin Ridley, Austin Hooper. Like that's not even close.
You know that the Rams also have Brad Woods as well, right?
Yeah, I mean that's no Calvin Ridley as your third string. Like the closest
in
team
my-
receiving is Pittsburgh with Antonio Brown and Juju. But like even then,
So you just trumped your own statement there that you're saying that the Steelers receiving core is better than the
no.
Falcons.
The Falcons are still better. The closest team is Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Like the amount of talent on this lineup is ridiculous, and Steve Sarkisian is pissing it away.
If they're really the best, I reckon they'd be winning 4 games by this stage.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like you saw how good this team was under a real offensive coordinator in Kyle Shanahan. Like the reason they went to the Super Bowl in that year was because of Kyle Shanahan. The reason they've looked terrible since then is because Steve Sarkisian does not know how to scheme properly for this offense.
Yeah.
Like
Anyway, yeah, let's talk about that ankle injury though to Tyler Eifert from the Bengals. His ankle like went like 360 degrees. It was gross. He's out for the season. I think that's a big blow.
Oh man.
That's all of the games were wrapped up. That's been played. There's obviously one more in Denver and Kansas City tomorrow. So
I still have that in the bag.
yeah, okay, so you
Yeah.
should have that one in the bag.
So yeah, on a lighter note, I thought that we'd introduce a new topic tonight, boys. New segment's called Around the Table, and I'll explain to you how it works. So in this segment, each of us we're going to pose a question. So before the podcast, I asked you guys to write a question, and then we'll respond to it. So we'll have 2 minutes. So each member will have 2 minutes. We're going to try and answer as best as possible, and at the end, whoever asks the question can pick the best answer. Or disagree. Is everyone cool with that?
Sounds good to me.
Let's go.
All right, cool. So I'm going to ask my question first because it was my segment. My question is, and it's a really relevant question. We spoke about it a bit earlier. It is the Big Ben era over?
Yeah, I think it's over. I mean, like as we discussed before, the Steelers have an amazing receiving core, but you can tell that Big Ben at this stage has been really relying on the rushing game, and with that piece missing, it showed, especially against the game against Baltimore, it wasn't really friendly for him. I think the biggest danger, though, on letting him go is that the Steelers pretty much have to rebuild because for a while they built a team around him. And not just that, for a new or rookie QB in the team, it's really tall order to be productive in the immediate part of the post-Big Ben era, like with against AFC defenses like the Jags, Texans, and even the Browns as well, as we saw in Week 1.
Yeah, I like that answer. You kept it nice and short. Kurt, you have a response?
Yeah, so basically my answer is going to be no. I don't think it's over, but I think it should be. I think Steelers Nation won't let Big Ben go out until he retires. Just because that fan base is so toxic, they won't accept anything better than winning. At the moment, he is still their best chance to win. Mason Rudolph is not ready to step into that team and take it over, especially not with that locker room. As long as you've got the personalities of Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown in that locker room, you cannot bring a rookie QB in and expect him to do anything. I think it'd be the right move to move on from Big Ben because I think his best is past him. I think he's in the same camp as Eli Manning, where he probably still has 5 years in him to play the game physically, but mentally he's checked out already. He's done. I think they're in the same boat as New York. Is how do you bring someone in when you've got that personality like Sterling Shepard and OBJ who are going to overmine these rookie QBs, unless it's someone like a Baker in next year's draft, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think Big Ben's era should be over. I think that draft of QBs is starting to seep out. You're seeing Phillip Rivers is still not having the same production. Manning is done in my eyes. Big Ben, you've seen it. Like, he's throwing more picks than he ever has in his career. He's not getting the yardage in production. He's taking sacks left, right, and center. I think he
Yeah.
knows in his own mind that it's over, but I think he's too proud
Yeah.
to admit that, and Steelers Nation won't let him retire until he can no longer throw a football.
Yeah. Out of those two, I completely agree with. I like both of your the way both of your point of views, but I think I agree with Kurt. I think just because he's such a polarizing figure in Pittsburgh, I think that it's not over, but it should well and truly be.
Mm.
Just like New York, I said that earlier. I think, and Kurt, you raised a really good point with that just how many toxic personalities are in the locker room. I think it's not the best idea to bring in a rookie quarterback. So, yeah, that's really good. I agree with Kurt with that one 100%.
All right, then I guess I'll go with my question next. My question is: should the Falcons start ringing the alarm bells? They started off 1-3. Should Falcons
Yeah.
fans start setting off all the alarms going to DEFCON 4?
I would say so.
Well, okay.
Yeah, because Kurt, you touched on this earlier how the Falcons have an amazing receiving core, arguably the best in the league. The only reason I said they're not the best receiving core in the league, no doubt Julio Jones is amazing talent and definitely leads the way, but they're 1-3. I mean, with a quarterback who's had league MVP honors and a receiving core like that, and with that kind of record, it's definitely if I was in a Falcons fan, if I was in the shoes of a Falcons fan, yes, I'll definitely ring my alarm bells because again, this is in my view always been one team that could really a all round team. Like I would say, can make places and that kind of thing. But in my view, they've always been one side of the ball. And to see them play like that and with that kind of record, yes, it definitely is. If I was a Falcons fan, definitely would be worried.
Yeah, well, I took a more of a different look. I looked at their schedule. So I personally don't think the alarm bells should be ringing. I think they're fine. If we just take a look at the teams they've played so far, their first 4 weeks was Philly, North Carolina, and Cincinnati, and they're all quality teams. They're all 500 teams, right? They're all 500 teams.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the Falcons, and I still think the Falcons are still one of the top five offenses of all of football. This season, they're averaging 29 points per game. So that's a lot of points. I think it's not as much as they were getting last year, but or in their Super Bowl game year where they made the Super Bowl but lost.
Yeah.
Their only real struggle is defensively, and it's always been an issue for the Falcons. For Atlanta, the defense has always been an issue. I think a little bit more so now because they're giving up 30.5 points.
Mm.
So that's a lot of points. So if we look at that, the point differential is only 1.5.
Yeah.
They got a point differential of -1.5. They're 1-3 against four quality teams. But then if we look at their next 4 weeks, they have New York, Pittsburgh, Tampa, and Washington. All four are winnable games. So at the halfway point, they could potentially be 5-3.
Yep.
So if they're 5-3 at the halfway point, a lot of us are going to start thinking that okay, they're gonna make the postseason. They're gonna make the wild card.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think what it all comes down to is not so much looking at it analytically, like Greg did, like looking at the offense and seeing, but really looking at their schedule. They have a really, really, a decent schedule for them to win a lot of games. I think, then I'm not going to say they're going to go, 13-3, but I think they have one of the easiest schedules in the league, and they could possibly go, 11-5, 10-6.
All right.
Yeah, so that's my point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason I pose this question is because I do think that the Falcons are in a rut. I think it's a little bit worrying that they are 1-3.
Mhm.
Again, the teams that they've played are not the easiest teams to come away with from wins, but the points that both of you make about with that sort of offensive weapons, they should be winning more games. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's not really that bad. Their defense is giving up only barely more points than they're scoring. Something that I'd like to interject is the main reason that I don't give these receivers so much flack is Matt Ryan is not who we think he is. Like, if you take away his MVP year, Matt Ryan is Andy Dalton. Like, statistically, he is exactly the same as Andy Dalton.
He's a mediocre quarterback.
Yeah, he's
mediocre.
like I saw someone do a comparison of this. I think it was Colin Cowherd. He took away the Matt Ryan stats from his MVP year and replaced it with an average quarterback's year, and his stats were exactly the same as Andy Dalton's.
Yeah.
And we give Andy Dalton shit all the time for being terrible.
Yeah.
You know, like we do. So I mean, he's not this MVP elite quarterback that we all think he is. He's a just better than average dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm gonna have to agree with Chance on this one because when I'm looking at the points difference is only 1.5 in their averages, and that that upcoming schedule does look pretty easy. I mean, if Pittsburgh still don't have Lev Bell by that week, that's probably an easier game for them. And then depending on like if Fitzmagic shows up in Tampa, like they could go 4-0 in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, I'm gonna have to side with Chance on this one.
Nice.
Fair enough. Right. So that brings me to my question then. I think we all pretty much agreed on, or pretty much putting on the open there, that the Vikings really are, at the start of the season, were that team that could really take all the glory here and go all the way. But at this stage, do you think they can still, pull it off, win the NFC?
I think I'll start with this one. When you look at it, you can't say there's a 0% chance of them going all the way. I'm going to say there's a very slim chance, probably 1%.
Yeah.
And for one simple reason, and one reason only, the Rams.
Yeah.
No way. The Vikings have looked like an above average team this season. They're 1-2-1. 1-2-1. So let's put it in a hypothetical. Let's say they make it to the conference game.
Oh Jesus!
Who's that?
Let's say they make it to the conference game, and then they get paired with the Rams. If you go head to head, we just saw this week that the Rams are the better team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really think that they have the Rams to battle with, and let's be honest, with an offense led by Jared Goff, who we just spoke about, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Todd Gurley, who's by far the best running back in the game, and a defense led with Donald. They are a very scary team, and they have all the tools to take the NFC title. And then when you really think about it, I think the only other real contender could probably be Philly.
Yeah.
Look like the team they were last year.
Yeah.
And I also think injuries will play a massive part for the Vikings, whether or not they'll succeed or not.
Yeah. Fair enough. Chance, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm going to say there is a next to no chance that the Vikings win the NFC. Like I hate to take the same stance because this is meant to be sort of like a debate segment to see like what we can see, but I don't think so for the same reasons. Like they're not going to get past the Rams, unless that there is a lot of injuries that the Rams take the Vikings don't. In saying that, I don't even know if the Vikings are going to be playing postseason football. Like they might win their division, but it's a tough division this year. Like Chicago looked like a better than average team, especially now after having Khalil Mack. Like that defense is legitimate. They showed against Tampa that when they want to, and when Mitch Trubisky's firing, they're going to be a team to beat.
Yeah.
Green Bay, if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, is always a threat for a postseason. And then when you're looking at wildcard berths, because the NFC is so tight, you could have two teams coming out of the South again. You could have two teams coming out of even the West. Depending on how things go, the Vikings might not even get to see postseason football. And if they do, they've got to run through the divisional stage. The wildcard, then divisional, then conference stage. Maybe they make it through, but I wouldn't be putting my money on it. Chance outlined the reason why I think the Rams are a better team, but once we get down into week 15, 16, 17, injuries are going to start to pile up. Like it's still week 4. Like we're only a month into the regular season, and I do think that the Eagles have one of the deepest depth charts on the entire league. So once we start getting into those late weeks, and once teams start taking serious injuries to their key players, that strength is going to show itself, and Philly is going to be able to outperform teams that they're evenly matched with because they'll have more talent in reserves.
Fair enough. Yeah, both very good points there, boys. But yeah, you both pretty much highlighted why it's such a slim chance and everything. But I thought it was an interesting question to pull up because we were all by the start of the season saying Vikings have up there as potential champions for the NFC this season.
Well, I had them winning their division.
Yeah.
I think I still like Green Bay winning the division, but yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. Um, like I said, depending on how things pan out, they might not end up playing postseason football. So,
Mm.
it's pretty crazy. It's a crazy table at the moment because if we were to take playoff teams at the moment, I think it'd be a very interesting bracket
Yeah. No doubt.
because I think Dallas would make it in from the East, and Dallas is nowhere near a playoff team.
Dallas make it.
Oh, it's either Dallas or Washington. I can't remember who it is. I think it's Washington because they had the bye this week, so they technically have the best record.
Yeah, we're on top of on the NFC East.
Yes.
Just saying.
So, yeah, Washington. So Philly would completely miss out. The Panthers, the Falcons. I think the Saints would even miss out as well. But yeah, so it'd be a very interesting postseason if we were to take the ladder as it sits now. But yeah, as I said, those injuries are going to be very interesting as we go into like the later weeks.
I think there'll be. I think when you say injuries in the later weeks, I think if there's anything that's going to stop the Rams from going all the way, it's going to be injuries. If
Yeah.
it ever happens.
Oh, yeah. Well, doesn't Minnesota don't their running back? Aren't their running back injured at the moment? Isn't he injured?
Dalvin Cook is out. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Well,
did his ankle, right?
No, I think it was a hamstring injury because it was a hamstring injury, but they wanted to like make sure it's all good because he snapped his ACL last season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so that brings the conclusion to our segment there. So I think the last thing we should do, boys, is just give our predictions for the upcoming week.
Yep,
Yep.
sounds good to me.
We'll start off with the Colts taking on the Patriots.
Oh Jesus, there it goes again. Oh, you alright there, Chance?
Anyway, we all agree that New England's going to have this one. They're looking hot. Julian Edelman's coming back, and yeah,
Yep, Pat's at Foxborough. We've all got New England. Don't think there's much else to say there.
Yeah.
The next game is the Falcons going to the Steelers, and we've all gone for Atlanta here. Even though we just talked about how they're struggling.
Mm.
We did also talk about how the Steelers are struggling just as much, and we've all backed Atlanta here as well.
Yeah.
The first game that we've had a disagreement on is Baltimore going to Cleveland, and Chance and I have both taken Cleveland, whereas you've gone Baltimore. So,
Yeah.
why don't you?
As we discussed before, Baltimore look like that team that's going to take the division this season, and this game's really gonna, I think Baltimore's really going to prove that.
Yep.
Yeah. I just think, I just looking from team perspective, they look like the better team. No heat on Cleveland though, because I don't think this will be an easy win for them. But I think ultimately Baltimore will end up being one step closer to division chance after this game.
Yeah, look, it's in Cleveland. Cleveland are coming off a high off winning at their own
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think it could go either way.
Yeah.
If we look at historically, the Ravens will win this game because I think
Oh
the
yeah.
Ravens have the best record against Cleveland of any team, any team's head-to-head record in the history of any professional sport.
Yes, and and if you look at it in that perspective, I think Cleveland's one of those teams that Baltimore's really always figured out.
Yeah, like Baltimore have like always had the Browns, like because they were the Browns, and then the little Browns were born.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where like historically Cleveland has always lost this matchup. So,
Yes. So I think yeah. I see why you guys are going Browns. I don't blame you there. I'm going for Baltimore, but I don't think it'll be an easy win overall.
yeah, I'm sort of going more off gut feeling. Like if I were to take this analytically, I'd put money on like the Baltimore, but
Yeah.
yeah, I have picked Cleveland. I believe in Baker. I'm on the hype train. So, choo
Fair
choo.
enough.
We're off to the next station where the Denver Broncos are heading to New York to take on Sammy Darnold and his Jets.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Jets aren't off to the hottest streak, and it sounds like we've still lost chance here. So I don't know what's happening. I'm just gonna
Yeah. Yeah, but we picked Denver. Let's hear why you picked Denver. Kurt.
So I went Denver because I think that they're a better team. Case Keenum is going to be the safe option. He's not going to do anything special, but that Denver team that I saw in preseason looked good. Chance, we can't hear you at all, by the way. That's why I moved you.
Yeah.
Um.
My
And,
bad.
Okay.
and I agree with you there, Kurt, because I think if you're looking from a team perspective again, I think Denver had the more complete team compared to New York.
Yeah, I think New York is lacking offensively on their receivers,
Yeah.
and on their defensive line is pretty mediocre to
Mhm.
bad.
Yeah.
But Chance, you've gone for the New York Jets, and it sounds like we've got you back on audio. So why don't you tell us why you've got back to Sammy Darnold and his boys?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
I just tipped the Jets because I want it to be different.
Fair enough.
Just we can't all be picking the same teams.
Yep.
So yeah, dumb pick, but I don't know. Yeah.
Well then, Greg, your game of the week. Why
Yeah,
don't you bring us into this
taking on
one?
the Lions. I think this is going to be, especially you got two great quarterbacks in both teams. So I think it'll be a pretty spectacular game.
Mhm.
I'm going to give the edge here to Green Bay because similar to the situation with Baltimore and Cleveland, I always felt that Green Bay have always, or at least the best of times, always figured out the lines. But I get like the Ravens Browns game. I don't think it'll be an easy win.
I see
Well,
that.
the smart pick would go for Green Bay, but Kurt, you've gone Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, Chance, you finally betrayed your boy Matt Stafford and not picked the Detroit Lions.
Because I tipped the Jets before.
Yeah, fair enough. You have gone for your
I
idiot
don't wanna-
pick of the week, so you can't have two in a row.
Wait, I'm pretty sure. Wait, yeah, it's my dumb pick of the week.
Yeah. So yeah, the reason I've gone Detroit is I think this is going to be a lot closer game than everyone thinks. I think Matt Patricia is doing a really good job in Detroit, and they're not far away from having a good team.
Yeah.
Even though we were just talking about rebuilds, they're competing in nearly all of their games. I mean, they beat New England when they had them, when they
Got
hosted
blown
them.
out by the Jets.
They did get blown out in the Jets in week 1, but since then they've looked very decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've looked like an average team, and that's not, to take a crap on the Lions. Like, it's pretty impressive to have a new head coach and be that good.
Look, it won't be impossible, definitely, for the Lions to win against the Packers. This is a game that can go either way.
Yeah, and again, we were just talking
But
about
for either team.
we were
but
just
for either
talk-
team, it won't be an easy win.
yeah, we were just talking about how Green Bay are trash without Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, if this turns into a shootout, I see it going to Green Bay. But if this turns into like a grindy game, Detroit have the better players in the trenches to get through this one.
Yeah.
Um,
So we'll move on to my game of the week, which should have been everyone's game of the week. Jags taking on Kansas City, and I've gone for Jacksonville just because I believe in Jacksonville. I think the Mahomes hype is going to die down with the Jags defense.
Yeah.
are
And
you-
I can see why, because Jags have a serious defense.
time out. Are we calling Pat Mahomes Alex Smith?
No,
Bro.
Is that what's happening here? He's had his 4 weeks of fame in September, and now it's got into real football, and he's going to go stale.
No, okay. The hype is dying. However, they're playing against a great defense in Jacksonville. They're a great defensive team, great
Yeah.
defensive setup, and I don't think that Mahomes can get away with as much as he's been getting away with in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I think he might not get away with a lot against Denver because Denver's another great defensive team. I don't think he's going to have his way with this team's defense.
yeah. I mean, I can see that,
Yeah.
but again, like the reason I've gone KC, and this is a very analytical approach, I think that offensively, KC match up the best with the Jags because they play a lot of under routes with Tyreek Hill and then let his feet do the rest. He's a very bad matchup for people like Jalen Ramsey and Bouye, but at the same time, you've got people like Kelsey, who can stretch the field, and Hunt, who is that threat in the box that you have to contain. So, I just see this as a very good matchup on paper for the way that the Chiefs like to play. No
Yeah.
doubt that this is going to be a fun game to watch. But at the end of the day, if this turns into a shootout, which it very easily could, then Bortles does not have the same arm Mahomes does. In saying that, Casey doesn't have the defense that Jacksonville does. So,
But I think the KC defense will be able to keep Bortles in check.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on then.
we'll move on, and we've all unanimously gone Cincinnati when the Dolphins go to the Bengals. I don't think there's much to talk about here. We were just so disappointed in the way that they took on the Pats.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean the Bengals have actually looked really good this season. They're a 500 team, but they've played better than that, to be fair.
Yeah.
They're like underrated for like a top spot.
Yeah, I mean
Like-
it's between them and the Ravens for that division.
Definitely.
So we'll just move on to the Giants taking on the Panthers, and I did make another stupid pick.
Well, there you go. Yeah, we just talked about how the Giants have their issues, especially in the locker room and with OBJ. So Greg and I have gone for Carolina. I mean, they're just a better team in the trenches, and they've had New York's number every time that they've met. So
I'm going OBJ, 120 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. You watch.
fair enough.
And the last time I went against the Giants did not win that game. So
I won lots of money off that game as well. Because you're like, the Giants won't win that game. I put $5 on them, and they were paying $6 odds. It was a good game.
Bro. So then we go on to Tennessee, Buffalo. And finally, I didn't tip Buffalo.
Yeah, I think you kind of can't tip Buffalo after the way they played in Green Bay.
The fact that Tennessee's coming off a good win off Philly.
Yeah, I mean, they looked really good. They didn't sustain any injuries. Marcus Mariota's elbow looks fine. But yeah, I don't see how Buffalo pulls a win out of this one. What do you guys
would
think?
you say Buffalo will end up as the worst in the AFC?
In the AFC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Considering the fact they made the wild card last year. Can we
They're
just
not
take a
bouncing
moment?
back from that. They're not bouncing
take a
back from that.
Like, let's just take a moment to really think of that.
Yeah, but if you go back and look at how they made it in, they were like almost eliminated from playoffs in like week 10. And then
It
just
was
the fact
Cincinnati that didn't get there.
Yeah, it was the fact that the Ravens, the Bengals, who else was it?
I think it was
Houston.
Ravens.
Oh
I think
yeah,
it was
Houston and Miami all like had these ridiculous amount of things happen to them that made the Buffalo get in.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and the Chargers. The Chargers went like 6-0 in the last couple of weeks and just ruined everyone's chances.
Yeah.
The Chargers were like already eliminated from playoffs, but like, hey, we're dragging you out with us. And that's the reason that the Bills got in. Like, they weren't the 6th best team in the AFC. It's just that they have the 6th best record.
So it came out a lot, pretty much.
Yeah. Speaking about dumb picks, Chance, do you want to explain why you've taken Oakland over the Chargers? No, we lost Chance again. Fair enough. Yeah, I'd be running from the hills too if I tipped Oakland. Yeah, like we just talked about how worrying it is that the Chargers were like not able to do it, or like
Yeah.
in a convincing style. They were able to get the win, but not convincingly over Jimmy G-less 49ers. But I still think that
Oh,
they're.
did they lose me again?
Yeah, we lost you again, man. I don't know what's happening. It might be your Wi-Fi or something.
Okay. All I was saying was that Derek Carr is back, Mari Cooper's back, Jordy Nelson is a gun.
Fair
He's got a
enough.
point there. He's got a point there.
But will they be able to do the same sort of defensive work that they did against the Browns? And the answer is I don't think so. So
The answer is yes, 100%.
I think Melvin Gordon's a dangerous weapon against the Raiders.
Melvin Gordon's an absolute gun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there's not really too much to talk about that game until we see it. But it could be a very fun and interesting game. It could be a high-scoring affair, seeing as the Raiders did just put 45 points up on the Browns.
Mm.
Who are, by the way, the Browns were a top 5 defense heading into the last week. Yeah, let that
Yeah.
soak in. They were a top 5 defense.
Mm.
Then the Cards go to the 49ers. These are two teams that we think are now probably battling it out for last place.
Yeah.
We've all gone for San Francisco. I mean, even with Jimmy
I think this
G-less,
will be a close one.
yeah,
I know it's surprising to say, but I think it'll be a close one.
even Jimmy G-less, I think they're still a better football team though.
Yeah, no doubt. But I don't think it'll be again. This one the Niners will pull off easily.
Then we've all unanimously gone for the Rams over the Seahawks. We've all talked about how
Yeah.
much the Seahawks are just an absolute dumpster fire this year.
Yeah.
Um,
The Earl Thomas incident last week spoke for itself.
Yep.
Really added field fire for them. So I think the Rams will definitely take this one pretty easily.
Then Minnesota head down to Philly for a rematch of the NFC Championship. How do you guys see this one going down?
I think it'll be close.
Minnesota, yeah.
I really think it'll be an either way game.
Yeah, I've backed Philly. I've backed my team. I think another week together, another week with Carson on the field, and Jeffries is back, and we've got our running backs in Ajayi and Sproles back, so it should be a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be like a game that really shows where these two teams are at, because I think for both of these teams, we don't know exactly how good they are yet.
Yeah.
Like the Rams, we can look at them and go, oh yeah, they're really good. But I think for
Mm.
both of these teams, they're yet to show us that, oh, okay, these guys are contenders.
Especially with a quarterback like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So for me, I've gone Philly, but again, I think this game could go either way. But I mean, I've got to, back the Flying Eagles.
Yeah.
Then we've got the All Texas affair, where Dallas heads to Houston. Two teams that really both need wins. Texans didn't look great, but we've all gone for them over the Cowboys. I think it's just because
I think Dallas might be sleepy. Don't count out Dallas. I think they could win this game.
yeah, Dallas
Only
could definitely win this game.
Just because it's the smarter of the two picks.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think I think it'll really come down to who wants to win more.
yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna change my pick.
Can't do that, right? All right,
Doing it
all right.
There you
now.
go.
Dang.
Chances draw. Oh, he's picked the draw. Fair enough. So are we doing double points if you pick a draw?
Double points if we pick the draw.
Yeah.
That's it. That's gonna be the draw of the week.
So
Alright.
I do think this will be a close game. This definitely depends on whether or not they can stop Zeke, and
Yeah.
what type of Deshaun Watson shows up. If Deshaun shows up in the form that we know he can play in, it's gonna be a blowout affair because the Cowboys secondary can't stop anything.
Yeah.
They're a wet paper bag. But if the Texans show up in the last 4 weeks that they've played and they continue to play the way that they've played, this could go either way. I have little to no faith left in Houston, and yet I pick them every single week.
And then the last game of the round, Kurt, your game of the week.
My game of the week is the Redskins going down to New Orleans. The reason this is my game of the week is I want to see how good the Redskins are against a team that has a very good offense. Like the Saints' defense should be good, but for some reason it hasn't been. I think that the Redskins are our sleeper pick for the NFC East.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want to see how good the Redskins are, because this could be a really interesting and exciting affair, especially if this turns into an absolute shootout. And we have
Yeah.
Alex Smith in a dome in Week 5. Like this is the last good week of Alex Smith, guys.
Mm.
Oh God, please win this game.
like statistically, Alex Smith falls off after the 5th week. So,
Yeah.
sending him,
I'm saying. We need to win this game.
yeah, sending them down to a dome, like this is the best conditions that you're gonna have. Is Alex Smith going to be able to turn it on and just light it up and match Drew Brees throw for throw? Because that's what's going to need to happen. And if that happens, it's going to be a really fun game to watch. And I think that the Washington Redskins might just be able to squeak out a win.
Yeah, I've gone New Orleans for this one because I reckon the Redskins have a really hard time containing the Saints rushing game.
Yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
Kamara's gonna be a big.
Yeah, and is Mark Ingram still suspended for that week, or is he coming back as well?
I think he's suspended.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's suspended at the moment, but is he coming back that week?
Not 100% sure, but
If he does come back, yeah, I'm giving the edge to New Orleans.
it will be a fun game to see Kamara versus Peterson, the young gun versus the vet. That running game will be very fun.
I just think Washington will have a really hard time.
next week.
Oh, Ingram's back in next week, or
Yeah.
He's back.
okay.
So yeah, for Washington, the key to them winning is just containing those two.
Yeah.
Because for them, I reckon it's a tall order.
Well, that wraps up everything that we had to talk about today, boys. I think we got through everything.
Yep.
And yeah, it's been an interesting week again. I think I won the week in tipping with 7 picks, so not even 500, and that's the best. That just shows how crazy this season is going.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's
You
all.
closed the gap.
Yeah, that's all from us today. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us on the trap. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.